Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus, presented by the Kashrus Awareness Project in conjunction with Torah Anytime. Today we are joined by Rav Shmuel Fuerst, Dayan of Agudas Yisroel of Illinois. Thank you so much again for joining us. A common Shabbos related question is related to warming drawers that are used. We could talk about hot plates as well, but let's start with warming drawers. They're commonly used by Kedushim and other events to maintain food, to keep them warm. And very often what happens is people take food out and then they want to know if they could put the food back in. So it becomes a shaila of chazara, a shaila of bishul, if you're not sure if it is cooked. Could the Rav walk us through what are the basic guidelines that we should know when it comes to warming drawers on Shabbos?
To use warming drawers on Shabbos is machlokes haposkim. Some hold, Rav Shlomo Zalman held, first of all, warming drawers is no different than heating trays. So we'll talk about both of them at one time. Warming drawers is not a heating tray because it's not derech levashel boy. All you do is to keep food warm. You never cook in there. Heating tray, you never cook in there.
When the Rav says heating tray, like a hot plate?
A hot plate. Hot plate that's not made food, just to keep the cholent warm or to keep the soup warm. But you don't do, a housewife will never do any cooking on it. It's just to keep the food warm. Sometimes they put it on, many people use it before Shabbos. They put it on the heating tray and they leave it on there to fry a nice of hot soup. So it'll make the whole house hot. And then, because it doesn't give that much heat off. Are you allowed to use but to question, can you put it on Shabbos, is the Issa Chazor or not? So of course we're talking with Savushu Kotzorchai.
Meaning for those watching, meaning it's fully cooked?
Fully cooked. And we're only talking about Davar Yovesh, like a piece of kugel, a piece of chicken without any liquid. If there's liquid in there, it's usher to put it back on Shabbos according to everybody, because we paskin by Davar Lach Yesh B'Shacha Bishul. So we're only talking about the shayla, the machlokes is only by something that's a dry piece of food that's in Vushul Kol Tzarchai, and you warm it up on Shabbos. Can you put it in a warming drawer or putting on a heating tray l'chatchila or not? So Shlomo Zalman printed in the Shema Shabbos Kol Chosai. There he says it's asa. There's Issa Chazara. He holds it's Issa Chazara. However, Rav Moshe, it's printed already in Igus Moshe, he held that you're allowed to put it in. Now, even though he mentions in the Tshuva, and the one is a Yisroel, he says it's not Yatz Letters Boy, but Baal Peh he said even it's Yatz Letters Boy, it's okay. In fact, Rabbi Ida in a Sefer talks about a radiator. Rav Moshe held you're allowed to take a piece of kugel and put it on top of a radio. A radio, you can burn your hands on it. Right. And he said he quotes Rav Moshe that it's okay. So we see clearly Rav Moshe held even with Yatz Letters Boy, he held that you're allowed to put it back on Shabbos as long as it's Davar Yovesh and Vushul Kol Tzarchai.
And the reason for that is because it's not called derech bishul?
Not derech bishul. It's not derech bishul. It's no different than Hisiger Kedera. Hisiger Kedera, you want to up on top of a cholent pot, you want to put a piece of chicken on there, you're allowed to put it on top of it as long as there's no liquid there. Right. So it's no different than Hisiger Kedera. However, even Rav Shlomo Zalman, even though he writes in Shema Shabbos Kol Chosai, but the newest print of the Shema Shabbos Kol Chosai, there he changed a little bit and he says Yesh Lahach Mechatchila. He didn't say in the first Yisroel he says Asa, but the new one it seems to be a little bit more Chayzer. He says Yesh Lahach Mechatchila, means he
which sounds like he's being a little more mekel.
He's being mekel, but just Yesh Lahach Mechatchila. So he almost holds exactly Rav Moshe. Moshe holds Lechatchila and Shlomo Zalman Yesh Lahach Mechatchila. That's all.
So someone asked me, we were talking about the hot plate. Someone asked me the bottom of a crock pot. It's not called a hot plate. It's part of the device. Yeah. You put the hot plate on it, and that clearly gets hot enough to cook. Do we treat that like
No, that's derech levashel boy.
That's derech levashel boy. Even if
it's a crock pot, there's no heta of putting inside a crock pot.
Even though you're using it, you're putting the food directly on it, that's called derech bishul.
The only thing is you can put on top of the you have a cover. On top of the cover, it's Hisiger Kedera. Right. Put it inside. That's Issa Chazor. You're not allowed to. Even Vushul Kol Tzarchai is Issa Chazor. That's derech levashel boy. Heating tray is not made levashel boy. A warming jar is not levashel boy. This is made derech levashel boy.
How about putting challah on top of a crock pot or a pot?
You're allowed to put a challah on top of a crock pot as long as it doesn't change. It doesn't come crispy. As long as it doesn't change colors, then you're allowed to do it.
Okay, thank you.